are you doing today, sir?
Very good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. Blessed to be talking with you because I love the fact that you really have put your entire self into writing, and you don't just stay on one subject, you explore, which I think teaches readers to explore themselves.
Yes, it's because I have such a short attention span. And if I did like the same thing all the time, my head would explode. So I basically, I write books for kindergarten kids, easy readers for second and third graders, more advanced books for fifth and sixth graders. And it kind of re-energizes me to like do different stuff all the time.
Yeah. You've written well over 100 books. And I chuckled when I read about that because I always tell my broadcasting students, you don't have a podcast until after 100 podcasts have made it up on the stream. And I just love the idea. I can officially call you an author because you have more than 100 books.
I'm wondering, how many books do you have to write before you can call yourself an author? Is it 1, 3, 100? I don't know. Well, I've been doing it for a long time, Arrow, and if you're a workaholic like me and you work pretty hard, you're going to accomplish something in 35, 40 years, whatever.
Do you walk into the writing space knowing what you're doing, or do you allow the universe to move through you and all of a sudden you yourself are the reader and you're shocked by what comes out?
Oh, by all means, I'm a planner. I have files of ideas that have struck me, and I always envy those authors who can open up a blank screen on their computer and say like, okay, now lightning will strike my brain and the words will just flow out of my fingertips. I plan the whole thing out from start to finish before I write the first word. That's just the way I am.
So are you telling me that you're holding a writing instrument? Because I am addicted to my writing instruments.
What is your writing instrument?
Well, what I do on a daily basis is that I have a writing desk, but I've got 5 writing instruments that have been with me for 20 to 25 years.
What are they?
Okay, one of them, my favorite one is a Mont Blanc Agatha Christie. And I have the John Lennon Mont Blanc, and I just believe that those writing instruments speak out and allow, especially the flow. Do you like the flow of a pen?
So you're a real serious pen lover, huh?
Yes. Yeah. I love having ink all over my hands because I know I've written today.
I use a cheap Bic round stick, which I buy for I think 13 cents if you buy enough of them. And couldn't care less. I'm sure if I had an expensive pen, I would immediately lose it or step on it or something like that. So I just use cheap pens, and I buy these 3x5 file cards, and I kind of just every time an idea pops into my head, a piece of dialogue, a description of a character, or some trivial fact, whatever it is, I just jot it down on one card, and then once I have like 100, sometimes 200 cards, I'll lay them all out on a table, and I'll start shuffling them around, trying to weave those ideas into a story that makes sense from start to finish. So I'm a real planner with file cards, and then once I plan out the whole story, which might take a month or more, then I sit down on my computer, I take the first card off the pile and start to write the book.
It's almost like a game. And with you explaining the way that you write things out, I hope that every young adult and even adult will learn something like this. Just have a Post-it note or a card, because I believe everybody is carrying a story. We just don't know how to get it out.
Yeah, actually, Errol, I didn't always do it this way. I used to outline my stories on my computer screen, but I found that on the computer screen, when your outline got too long, it became too big to fit on one screen, and it became difficult to cut and paste back and forth. And that's when I started using the file cards instead for me. But of course, everybody's got their own system that works for them.
You're creating files, which to me is, goes right with your series, The Genius Files, because you fit right into that.
Oh, you read the Genius Files? Thank you, Arrow.
Well, my wife's a school teacher. This is required reading so I can have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, for listeners who don't know what the Genius Files is, it's a series I wrote about these two kids. Their names are Coke and Pepsi, by the way. And they're traveling cross country with their parents over summer vacation while these bad guys are chasing them the whole time. And There's 5 books in the series, and they go all the way from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., and back again over the course of the 5 books. That was really fun to write.
Well, how fun was it to put together the mostly true story of Cleopatra's Needle?
Thanks for asking. Most people don't even know what that is. But I live in New York City, and I live across the street from Central Park. And right in the middle of the park is this giant 220-ton obelisk, somewhat like the Washington Monument, sort of. But it was 3,500 years old, carved in Egypt, and brought to America in the 1880s. And during the pandemic, I'd ride my bike around the park, and I'd see this thing and wonder about it. And I started researching it. And there was no children's book written about the topic. So I thought, I'm going to write the story of how this thing came to America, telling the story through the eyes of 5 different kids who were part of the whole process. And that's how I wrote the book. And I hope people will get into it. I'm not sure, because it's a topic that's very unusual, and most people don't know what it is.
Yeah, but see, the thing about it is, so it fascinates me because I've been to New York City and I know nothing about this, but now I've got to go back.
And most people who've lived here their whole lives don't know about it. It's just sitting there right behind the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And every day, thousands of people ride their bikes or jog or walk past it, and nobody pays any attention. But when it came to America in the 1880s, it was a huge sensation.
Wow. Where can people go to find out more about you, Dan, and to get involved, especially teachers? I want teachers to really see what it is that you're bringing, because you're out there to get that reluctant reader. You know how to get that reader, and they need some help.
That's because I was one, Harrow, actually. Oh. I hated to read when I was a kid. I had trouble, like a lot of boys do, putting words into sentences, into paragraphs. And I think because I was a reluctant reader myself, I relate really well to those kids. And I think that's why they respond to my stuff.
Wow.
As far as checking me out, well, people can go to my website, which is just www.dangutman.com. And I always post every day on Facebook and Instagram and X, as we now call it.
That's right.
I try to not just plug my books, but maybe tell a joke or give some information that people might find interesting. And I have fun with that.
I love it. Please come back to this show anytime in the future, Dan. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, thanks so much, Arrow. I really appreciate it.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
You too.